The ocean gives us the elixir of life, water. But in that water, it also hides something ancient, a silent and unforgiving predator shaped by 400 million years of evolution. Most of the time, sharks keep to themselves, deep currents, dark waters, out of sight. Shark attacks are rare, but when they happen, they don't just wound flesh, they shatter illusions. They scar bodies, devastate families, and rewrite the way a whole town sees the tide. These aren't just encounters, these are ambushes. Sudden, brutal, unforgettable. The water can be calm, the sky can be blue, and still from below, something moves. They strike without reason, without sound, and when it's over, they leave nothing but red water and questions. These stories carve their way into memory, into headlines, into the fear that lingers every time we step into the sea. So today, we're diving beneath the surface into the bloodied corners of history to relive the worst shark attacks ever recorded, and what happens when nature decides you're prey. July 30th, 1945, somewhere deep in the Pacific. The night was calm, too calm. The breeze skimmed the surface of the water with an eerie stillness. Below deck, nearly 1,200 American soldiers were asleep, bone-tired but relieved. They had just completed a top-secret mission, delivering components of the atomic bomb later dropped on Hiroshima. Unaware, they drifted into the kind of slumber that only comes after days at sea. Then, just after midnight, the hull exploded. 2 Japanese torpedoes tore into the starboard side. Steel screamed, bulkheads twisted. Within minutes, the USS Indianapolis, one of the Navy's proudest warships, began to sink. 12 minutes. That's all it took to sink the mighty warship. 12 minutes to turn a floating city into twisted metal swallowed by the dark. 900 men were left floating in the open ocean. No one saw them go down. No distress signal made it through. No rescue was coming. At first, it was quiet, just the slap of waves, the groans of the wounded, the soft prayers of the dying. Then the sharks came. Oceanic white-tips, ruthless, curious, tireless, drawn by blood, movement, and human suffering. At first, the attacks were isolated, a sudden scream, a splash, then silence. But by the second day, the ocean had turned into a feeding ground. The sharks circled endlessly, picking men off one by one. Survivors clung to floating debris, their skin peeling under the blazing sun. Eyes burned from salt, fuel coated their bodies. The water was warm, but it felt colder with each hour. Some drank seawater and went mad, raving, screaming, striking out at friends before slipping under. Others whispered to the sky, begging for clouds, for rain, for rescue. At night, the darkness was complete. You couldn't see the next man beside you, only hear him breathe until you couldn't. Bodies vanished, dragged under, or simply letting go. 4 days passed, 4 days of heat, thirst, hunger, and horror. Then, by sheer luck, a patrol plane spotted the slick. Help came, but far too late. Only 316 survived. Harold Bray was just 17. It was cold, he said. Even in the daytime, it never warmed up. You had to be young and strong to survive what we went through. He did survive, but he never forgot. No one could. The exact number taken by sharks was never confirmed. Some say it was dozens. Others believe it was over 100. But one thing is certain. The sinking of the USS Indianapolis became the deadliest shark attack in recorded history. And for every sailor who hears that name, it means something else now. It means pain. It means survival. It means being truly alone at sea, hunted, forgotten, and left to drift in a living nightmare. It began on a warm golden evening on July 1st, 1916. The waves lapped lazily at the sand in Beach Haven, New Jersey. Families strolled along the shore. Children giggled. It was the height of summer, and the Atlantic felt safe, familiar. Charles Van Zandt, 25 years old, had just arrived from Philadelphia. Tall, athletic, beaming with energy. He kicked off his shoes and waded into the surf with his dog. Water was clear, gentle, barely reached his knees. Then, without warning, the sea changed. A thrash, a swirl of red, a shape dark and fast moving like a torpedo beneath the surface. Screams tore across the beach. Lifeguards sprinted into the waves. They dragged Charles to shore, his legs shredded to the bone. Blood poured across the sand. His dog howled beside him as they carried him to the Ingleside Hotel. He bled out on the lobby floor. Some said it was a turtle, others whispered shark. but few actually believed it. Sharks didn't attack people, not in New Jersey, not in America. But 5 days later, the ocean struck again. At Spring Lake, 45 miles north, Charles Bruder, a Swiss bell captain, dove into deeper waters. He was strong, a confident swimmer. He never saw it coming. A gray flash, a violent pull, then blood bubbled to the surface. Witnesses ran into the surf, shouting his name. But when they reached him, both legs were gone, stripped clean. He died before they reached land. Still, the newspapers hesitated. Freak accident, they claimed. Then came July 12th. Matawan Creek, 30 miles inland. Calm, brackish water. Boys played by the edge, laughing and diving, unaware that a predator had followed the tide upriver. 11-year-old Lester Stillwell was the first to scream. A fin cut through the murky surface. Lester was yanked under so fast, his friends thought he'd disappeared. The water frothed with blood. The others ran for help. Stanley Fisher, a local tailor, didn't hesitate. He dove in, searching blindly. He found Lester's body. Then the shark found him. It clamped down on Stanley's thigh, ripping flesh and muscle. He died hours later in the hospital, and the shark kept moving. Just upstream, 14-year-old Joseph Dunn was pulled from a ladder by something massive. His leg was ravaged, but he survived, the only one who did. 12 days, 4 attacks, 3 dead, 1 maimed. And for the first time, America realized the ocean wasn't just a place of leisure. It could be a hunting ground. The sharks were never seen clearly, but those who survived described a monster with dead black eyes, serrated teeth, and a hunger that didn't care for reason. That July, the sea itself turned against its people, and the myth of safety along the Jersey shore was shattered forever. It was the kind of morning that made you forget the ocean could be dangerous. Peak Bay, South Australia, March 3, 1985. The sun shimmered across the water like a sheet of glass. It was low tide, calm, quiet, the kind of day that felt harmless. Shirley Ann Durden, 33 years old, waded into the shallows with a metal bucket in hand. She was a mother of 4. Out with her husband and a family friend looking for scallops, nothing unusual. Waist deep, maybe 20 feet from the shore, she moved slowly, scanning the sea floor. Her husband trailed behind her, knee deep. The kids were on the beach. Then the water exploded. A dark shape, enormous, fast, unstoppable, surged from the depths like a missile. Eyewitness Kevin Wiseman described it as a torpedo made of muscle and teeth. 20 feet long, a great white. It came from below, angled up like a hunter closing in. Shirley barely had time to scream. The shark struck with a violence that didn't belong in daylight. It hit her with such force that she was lifted out of the water, her body thrown, twisted, then slammed down again in a storm of foam and blood. The beach fell silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Then the screaming started. Kevin Hirschhausen, fishing nearby in a small boat, pulled closer. He saw the impossible. Shirley's torso, headless, limbless, floating in a pool of red. The shark hadn't left. It came back with the methodical calm of something that knew it wouldn't be stopped. In one motion, it took the rest of her, a clean, brutal bite. Then it disappeared. Her husband's voice echoed across the bay, raw and broken. "She's gone! She's gone!" By the time rescue teams reached the scene, the sea had already wiped itself clean. All that remained was a widening slick of blood and silence. Authorities closed the bay immediately. Fishermen laid baited hooks and drift nets overnight. They searched the shoreline at dawn. They found only one thing, a single rubber flipper. Shirley Durden, a daughter, a wife, a mother of 4, was never recovered. Not the body, not a bone. It was the first confirmed case of total dismemberment by a shark in Australia in over a decade, and it shattered the illusion that safety came with shallow water and daylight. Locals demanded a hunt. A rogue shark needed to be destroyed, they said, but experts warned it wouldn't bring her back and it wouldn't change the ocean. Because the truth was harder to face. This wasn't just a rogue predator. It was the sea, unfiltered, nature at its most merciless. And every time someone steps into Peak Bay, they remember what it gave them that day. A flash, a scream, then nothing. Just red water and the sound of waves rolling in. The wind came sharp off Monterey Bay that Sunday afternoon, cold enough to bite through a wetsuit. December 7, 1952. Lover's Point was quiet, gray skies, choppy surf, a calm that didn't feel quite right. 17-year-old Barry Wilson, high school senior, stripped down and stepped into the water. He'd swum here before. He was strong, skilled, confident in the sea. He eased past the breakers, cutting through the 55-degree water. Visibility was poor, 6 feet at best, but Barry didn't hesitate. He dove, his body vanishing beneath the surface. Then the ocean erupted. From below came a burst of speed and power. A great white shark, massive and silent, struck with the force of a torpedo. It latched onto Barry's lower body, dragging him upward. Eyewitnesses said it was like watching a body shot from a cannon. Barry broke the surface screaming. Blood fountained around him. The water turned red in seconds. Onshore, people froze. Swimmers nearby stopped mid-stroke. Barry was thrashing violently, his right leg nearly torn off, his arms flailing, his face pale, his mouth wide with agony. Then a boy moved. 15-year-old Bruckner Brooke Grady Jr. dove in without hesitation. Knife in hand, he swam straight toward the predator. He slashed wildly, aiming for the eyes. He struck the shark again and again as 4 others rushed in behind him. They pulled Barry onto an inner tube barely afloat while the shark circled just below, unmoved, waiting. Salt stung their wounds. Blood soaked the raft. Barry's breathing was ragged, each gasp more shallow than the last. They reached the sand, dragging him through the surf as his blood trailed behind. But it was too late. The shark had severed Barry's femoral artery. He had deep gashes along his thigh, lower back, and torso. The wounds weren't from one bite. There were many, deliberate, merciless. Barry died minutes after hitting land. It was the first confirmed fatal shark attack in California history. Newspapers branded it the work of a killer shark, though scientists urged calm warning against hysteria. But it was too late for calm. Barry Wilson had become a symbol, a reminder. Lifeguards installed warning flags and built elevated towers, but none of it erased what happened. To this day at Leghorn Beach, his name is spoken with a hush, because that winter the sea gave something back, fear, and it had a name, Barry. The ocean looks beautiful from the shore. We wade into it, surf its waves, and float on its surface as if we belong there. But the sea has its own rules, ancient ones. It does not bend to our sense of safety. Beneath the glittering sunlight and warm shallows, something else moves, cold, unseen, waiting. The people in these stories didn't do anything wrong. They were swimmers, children, explorers, and mothers. They stepped into the water that they thought they understood. But nature doesn't need permission to strike. It doesn't choose victims based on reason. Shark attacks remind us of something we'd rather forget, that we are not at the top out there. We are fragile flesh in a kingdom of predators. These moments, sudden, violent, unforgettable, rip through our illusion of control, but they also leave behind stories. And in those stories, we find something more than fear. We find bravery, sacrifice, and a fragile line between life and death. So we remember them, the ones who were lost, and the ones who saw the water turn red. If you want more true stories of nature's darkest moments, hit subscribe. There's more just beneath the surface, and we're just beginning.